I fail 1,000 times. I just don't pay attention to it because I look to find the success. And people just miss that. And the biggest thing is, I hate the word pivot, but we had to pivot so many different times to live. Just again, in fulfillment, not success. Everybody talks about success like this achievable trophy. But to find fulfillment, to choose your tribe right, it's all about reminding people that they're awesome and to be awesome and to do awesome things. And it doesn't mean you need to climb a mountain or do any of that stuff. It just means be a better human.
Welcome to the Hard Way podcast with Joe Sena, founder and CEO of Spartan Races. We're teaching you how to overcome your obstacles in your life the same way we teach our 10 million plus Spartans to overcome obstacles on the course, with insight from the smartest, most accomplished experts from every corner of the world. Get ready to elevate your life today.
Joe Sena here, CEO and founder of Spartan and host of the Hard Way podcast. I've got my buddy Joshua Peach on. This guy inspires the world. Somehow he's got an energy like no other. He gets people up, out of bed, gets them moving, gets them doing things that they otherwise don't want to do. How you doing? Welcome aboard.
Doing awesome. And thank you for the honor to be here.
Oh, this is a lot of fun. I like high energy people. So where'd you grow up? Like, did you grow up next to a power plant maybe and some of that electricity rubbed off? Like, what happened?
Yeah, no, I grew up in just outside of Boston, Massachusetts. I was raised primarily early years by my mom and my grandparents, all immigrants. I'm firstborn here in the United States. Everybody was born in island off the coast of Morocco, Madeira. And I migrated here in 1966 and had a lot of excitement at school. They told me that I was hyperactive, probably, so that, most talkative and all that other stuff. And who would have known that after 5 years of high school, I'd be able to put that as a profession.
Isn't it funny? I'm doing so many, I've done well over 700 podcasts. I meet a lot of entrepreneurs throughout my life. You probably see this too. But those with quote unquote ADHD, hyperactivity, whatever, they seem to be the ones.
Yeah, you did 912 as of today, and your goal was to do 400 because I listened to your first episode. Yeah,
there you go. Is this 912? Jesus. So yeah, it seems to be that the folks that have this thing that we somehow prescribe drugs for, right? ADHD, hyperactivity, is the thing that works.
Yeah, it is. Actually, it was funny. I just had someone. I just found out something about the lack of moments of silence in schools for 9/11. I had someone I was telling the story to, and he's like, "Can you believe that someone that's got ADHD doesn't forget about a moment of silence at 9/11? Seems like a lot of the world does." Yeah, you're able to do a whole bunch of things and go in a whole bunch of different directions, and people often are like, "How do you have all this stuff in your brain?" And it's just there, and I call it a blessing. Anytime someone starts to talk about their kids having ADD or ADHD or any of these things, and I'm self-diagnosed because they didn't have that when I was a kid. I'm 49 and just didn't have it. But I tell, when parents are talking about their kids having it, I'm like, use it as a blessing. Figure out how to harness what they do. And it's not a crutch. You just put it to work.
There's a great book called The Edison Gene that anybody out there grappling with this information should read. I read it many years ago. And the author argues that really what it is a remnant gene. Thomas Edison had it. Helped him create 999 light bulbs till he finally figured out how to make a light bulb, right? So this author argues that we were hunter-gatherers for most of the time on this planet. And as a hunter-gatherer, you had to constantly be scanning your environment. And then when there was a deer or there was food, you honed in on it and you became laser focused. Many years later, we became farmers where you plant a seed, you sit and drink tea, and you wait to harvest the food. Well, a lot of people still have that hunter-gatherer gene. I suspect you have it. I have it, right? Those folks that are running around like maniacs in school and as kids, they have that gene.
And I think that you said it kind of like Edison did 999 failures before one success. I think our ADHD allows us to forget about our failures a whole lot quicker and move on to the next thing. The next failure gets us closest to the next success, right? And so I failed a million times. That's the hardest thing I have with my kids. I understand you've got I think 4 kids. I've got two boys, and I've got a teenager and a 6-year-old. And, my teenager for a long time was like, he was struggling because he said he never saw me fail. And was like, I fail 1,000 times. I just don't pay attention to it because I look to find the success. And maybe that's one of the blessings that you have with all of that and how you think about it. You kind of just push it off to the side, move on.com.
I have some bad news come all day, every day, like other people do. Within 15 seconds, I can't remember what I was just upset about.
Yeah.
It is the most awesome feature of my brain.
Yeah.
I'm already on to the next thing. I don't sit around and sweat any nonsense because look, at the end of the day, I heard this. I heard most 90-plus-year-olds, when they interview them, they say the one regret I have, they say, is that all those things I was sweating, all those things I was nervous about, all those things I was really, had a knot in my stomach, none of them came true. I shouldn't have wasted my time worrying about them.
We deal with that with illness and all of our traumas, that we focus on the 99 things it might be and not the one thing that it most likely always ends up being, which is not that bad. I mean, that's why one of the best-selling books is Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and it's all small stuff. You got to look at things in perspective. And I fail too. If I can switch a little bit just so that I can show you an awesome failure, and I want to get this out of the way right out of the gate. I was at 36,000 feet on May 3rd, and I get an email on my phone, and it just says, Joe DeSena podcast. And I was like, oh my God. And this is my brain's trigger. Frank Poncherello and John Baker almost got me killed in 2012 because of an episode of Chips in 1978. So I have triggers in my brain that things happen. That's all I saw. And within 30 seconds, I'm like, yes, I'd like to be on the podcast. And the reason why I wanted to be on the podcast was on July 23rd, 2020, I didn't know the date until I looked back. I was going through a really bad time, like lots of people. My business was completely crushed, and I'm only one employee. I'm a travel around and speak, but I was so proud of myself in 2 years. My second year in business, I had 39 keynotes scheduled for the rest of 2020. March 13th happened and everything just folded. The whole business, I went 62 days. I didn't even sell a t-shirt. A woman by the name of Denise Maroney saved me from closing the business because she bought 10 t-shirts and brought me back to life. I mean, think about the $240 purchase kept me going. But I had a whole lot of stinking thinking. I didn't do the 15-second rule of just forgetting about it. July 23rd, 2020, I'm listening to Joe Rogan. And I get Light and Levity by this guy, Joe DeSena, who I didn't know. The light was, I'm sitting there having doom and gloom about losing my 39 keynotes, and you're talking about losing 325 events in 45 countries or something like that. And then you've been referenced in my life for the last 4 years as the Chicken Man. And it's because in that podcast you brought levity because you're sitting there talking about how you have this farm and you had chickens brought to the post office. And so I had chickens. We ordered chickens on a mail order in Missouri and had them brought to the post office. And I asked my fiance, I'm like, at the time, like, who the hell buys chickens and has them come to the post office? I'm like, we haven't found anybody. So you're the chicken guy. You're the only other person in the world I've ever heard that has chickens brought to the post office. But that was the greatest honor. I didn't know anything else other than that. And it was just that knee jerk. I wanted to be a part of this. So I wanted to just say thank you for the last 4 years. You have no idea who I was, but you brought light and levity to a very dark place that I had in my life, and you didn't even know it. So I appreciate it.
So you're immigrant family, grew up around Boston. No dad?
Yeah. So my dad. Great. Nobody ever really asked this question. I grew up. My father and my mother separated basically on my first birthday, somewhere thereabouts. Met my biological father on my 19th birthday. I always tell people that's why I took 5 years to graduate high school. I graduated high school after 5 years, and also it was my 19th birthday. I met him briefly. It wasn't a good pairing. I'm grateful that he did what he did to get me here, but he didn't do anything to keep me here. So, but I was very fortunate to have someone step in when I was 8 years old. Married my mother. Chose to adopt me. That's how I got Peach as the last name, because the Portuguese last name's Pedro. Guy's guy, 101st Airborne in the Vietnam helicopter pilot, successful businessman, and really my guide. He was my business partner. We owned a spring water business for a while, owned property together, did a whole bunch of stuff. And unfortunately, he woke up one day and forgot my name. So he's been living with dementia for the last 8 years, but he's pretty much just physically here and mentally not for the last 4. I went period that I didn't have a really good father figure. But my mom did a great job. My grandparents did fantastic. By the way, the day of your podcast was the day after what would have been my grandfather's 100th birthday. He passed away 2 weeks before his 80th birthday, but that was like the kind of the guide. My grandfather used to always say, we weren't wealthy. We didn't have money. We didn't have much of anything. And my grandfather used to pack boxes and ship clothes and blankets and all sorts of stuff home to Madeira. And I remember being a kid and being like, we don't have anything. Why are you sending this stuff? And he's like, people are in worse shape than we are. No matter what shape we're in, somebody's worse. And that was like that message with the, my 39 events didn't mean anything to 325. That's 10% of your 10% of what you're carrying for weight, plus hundreds. I'm sure you have hundreds of employees that you were taking care of. So my upbringing, but I live in the house that my parents bought to live in forever. They got divorced in 2007, worst economic time in history. And I was like, if anybody's going to take advantage of my parents during this tough time, might as well continue to be me. So we gave them the best. We matched the best offer they had at the time, and we've been living there for 17 years.
And you have 2 boys, you said?
Yes, 17 and 6.
And your main business now is still you're doing the speeches, you're inspiring people.
Yeah, so I go around to a lot of schools. I like working with schools. Private sector is, as I'm sure you experience in Wall Street, people's why is clouded in private sector, and a lot of it. I helped a business go from basically zero to they sold at 1.9 billion a couple of years ago after I was departed. Private sector's tough. Public sector, people go to work every day to make a difference in the world. They go to work every day against all odds, underpaid, understaffed, underappreciated. And I get to go and just spend a little bit of time with them and really get to try to get into one person's mind. One of my lines is, what if everybody made somebody's day? Everybody's day would be made. I mean, too often we're just zombies going through the day to day. If we just picked our head up and said thank you to someone, it could make all the difference in the world. And so that's kind of what I do. I travel around, work with schools, work with businesses, spend time, talk about customer service, leadership, teamwork, but really just being a better human by being better to humans, and give examples and stories that people can relate to, that they get done and they go, wow, that was me. I had something similar like that happen to me, or I had this issue. A big story I talk about is my first colonoscopy last year. It's on my podcast, so I'm pretty public about it. But, talk about just life stories.
Well, let's not get into that one. But good thing you've already covered that.
Yeah.
But no, I love what you said, because it is so simple. It's almost free, as a matter of fact, to make somebody's day, but we don't do it. If we all did it, it would change everything.
Yeah, my fiance ran our first 5K a number of years ago, and there was someone standing in front of her, and they had a T-shirt, and on the back of it, she said, "The difference between and this is how simple it is. The difference between a good day and a bad day is your attitude." It really is. Like, yeah, a lot of stuff stinks and it's terrible, but how you handle things. 99% of the world gets thrown at you, and the 1% that you have control over is how you react to it. I can remember I was in a really bad situation with a delay and people being volatile and angry and all this other stuff. And, there's one guy in particular that was just out of line. He was just being wildly disrespectful, and he was on the phone telling the airline who he was and how often he flew, which meant he flew once or twice in his life, most likely, and that he'd never fly them again. And I just walked over to him and I calmly just said, "Hey, man, see those people over there?" He's like, "The pilots?" I said, "No, the flight attendants." He's like, "Yeah." I said, "Cinco de Mayo, dude. If we get on that plane and they know how bad you've been to them and how bad they're feeling, they're going to tell the pilots to find turbulence, and we're not going to be able to have a drink. And I want to celebrate in the air. I just want to be able to get up there and do this thing." And guy calmed down. People started to get relaxed. And I'm not saying it was me. It was probably a series of things that happened. And I ended up getting on the plane, and the guy in front of me turns around and he goes, "I wish I could do that." And it turned out, I'm not going to say his name, but it turned out he was actually one of Donald Trump's advisors in the campaign in 2016. And I'm sitting there going, how does that happen? Like, how do you, you're an advisor for this campaign, and, it's just talk to people, just be nice. You can get a positive result out of a negative opportunity, right? So just figuring out how that all works. And it's really easy. I'm not that smart. So people pay me a lot of money to tell them words of wisdom. There's no lightning in a bottle to being a good person. It really isn't.
Yeah, it's incredibly impactful, and it changes the world, and it feels really good, right? Like it's nice to make money, but it's nicer to change somebody's day, change somebody's life.
Yeah. Well, I've never had a lot of money. That's like a contrary of what people think. I actually took a position. I actually have 2 companies, and I'm a vice president of business development in a startup software company that in 2022 I went to, and I said, "Don't pay me anything. Just give me a commission on anything I bring into you." And I went 14 months without a paycheck. And then, of course, if you've got kids that are in their teens, hopefully they all have good teeth. But I had, braces. I had medical expenses for the young one. I had the cars break. I had all this. I had everything mount and happen on me. And it wasn't like I had this war chest of money behind me. And it was the first time in my life that I looked and I was like, yeah, I've always wanted a lot of money. I've always wanted to be successful. I've always wanted to have a vacation home. I've always wanted, all those things. And I don't know if it's my age. I don't know if I've gotten to the point where I'm like, maybe I don't have enough runway to do it, but I don't need a private plane. I don't need a nice boat. I don't need fancy cars. What I need for me to feel fulfilled is for my family to have good experiences with people, because there's just I have so many bad ones. Like you travel a lot. I was listening to some of your traveling, and like, you're so far past what I do. But I did about 20 to 22,000 miles flown in the last 2.5 weeks. And, airports are the worst place to see people in their worst behavior, right? Best place to see people in their worst behavior. And you just see all this stuff, and you're like, man, if my kids or if my fiance or if my mother or if my loved ones, it's like, treat people how you want your grandparents to be treated, right? Just try to get people to act a little bit differently. And I don't get paid nearly enough for my life story to do that, but it's enough for me to do what I want to do, and for me to feel like there's one person today that's going to think a little bit differently how they act to someone tomorrow.
So behind the scenes, inquiring minds want to know, are you like a keyboard warrior? You're really nice on the outside. You're shaking people's hands. You're making them feel good. But then on social media, you get angry and yell at people?
I hate social media. I think it's a devil. I wish that I didn't have to use it. As a matter of fact, I have people, I need to disconnect, because Facebook requires you to have a personal account to have a professional account. And I have a lot of people that send connection requests with me that on the personal one. And like, I had someone reach out to me about, one of their family members. I didn't check it for like 2 weeks. No, I don't have a social media keyboard warrior life. I try to fill, as a matter of fact, if you connect, my LinkedIn's my number one place where I put stuff, but you have to do a lot to shake me up to say, I'm not going to say I've never said something that was on point and straight positive. I have one of the things that I have, because my shirt says be awesome. And it's two things. It tells people to be awesome, and then it tells me to be awesome when I look in the mirror. So I don't have a lot of jerks in my life, but I've also been kicked off every local social media page that I was ever on, because people say and do wrong things, and I'll call them out on it, but I won't do it in a way that's offensive or hurtful. I'll just say, maybe you shouldn't have said that. And so I get exited, which is fine. I don't want to be there anyway.
Yeah. No, I was busting your chops, but I suspected it is annoying, right? That half the I remember when COVID was going down and my world was falling apart. I said, maybe I should go online and tell people that they should follow Cuomo and wear a mask, even though I wasn't into the mask thing. And so I did a little video, and literally 50% of our audience wanted to, can't believe you want to make people wear masks. And, a few weeks later I said, everybody should come out and race.
Yeah.
Because we should probably get outside, get sunlight, get vitamin D. Half the audience, I can't believe he wants to kill people. I was like, I don't even know what to say.
We're in a society where 50% of the people aren't going to like whatever answer we have. And I looked at some of your social media stuff, and I've started to follow all of your pages and all that stuff just to kind of understand more. Because like I said, you were the chicken man that lost 325. That's all I knew about you. I did some looking, and you stand by your virtues. You stand by your mission. I think that for me, the way that I see you is, a lot of the stuff you talk about trying to break people. Like, first thing I saw was your death race. And it's like you say you might die, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going on this podcast. Really, this is a little nerve-wracking. What I think you do, what I think you try to do, that I read through, is that you try to build people. And so I might not agree with the way that you talk about how you want to build people, but I agree with what you want for an outcome. And I think people just miss that. And the biggest thing is, there's two things. People think the worst thing about communication is that two people think it happened, right? We think communication is happening right now. The other thing is, the stuff that I'm saying, you might not be hearing. So I might think I'm gold right now. I might think I'm saying the best stuff I've ever said. And you're sitting there going, this guy's an idiot. Like, what's he talking about? So, understanding what people are saying to you and making sure that they understand that you're hearing properly, right? And that's where social media misses the mark, because it's a text message, right? I sent a text today, supposed to be completely lighthearted. It was meant to be funny, and I offended the person. And I came back, I'm like, I don't know why you're mad. This is funny. I didn't do emojis or anything, but it was hysterical. And they were offended. So there's a lot of times in social media, people have the best of intentions, but it's the poorest of execution. Yeah, no, I stayed off of all that stuff. I think that one thing COVID did teach us is that, I hate the word pivot, but we had to pivot so many different times to live. I mean, I'm sure that even though you forgot about a lot of your stresses, you're like, all right, how do we get back to where we were? And how do we do it quick? And hey, I'm not ashamed to say it, I vaccinated. Why? Because I wanted to get back to normal, and that's where they said you had to do. Am I a sheep because I did it? I don't know. I'm still here. I've only had COVID once, and it was because I went to Florida. If you want to get COVID, go to Florida. That's apparently the story. That's what everybody told me. They said, Josh, you were a unicorn until you went to Florida, but I've had COVID once. It wasn't that bad. Was it the vaccine? I don't know, but I did it. Why? Because I was doing free keynotes in my basement in a green screen looking like a fool, just trying to make the time go by so I could start to build live events again. So I get it. Everybody's hurting. That's the reality is everybody today is hurting. Everything's more expensive than it's ever been. Most people don't have the ability to control their income, right? You and I do. To some extent, you and I can control what we can control. We can say, all right, we're going to go and do this, and we're going to make an effort to make X amount of dollars. I'm going to go try to get 2 more keynotes this month, and it'll increase my revenue by X amount of dollars. Or I'm going to step back and spend time with my family. Most people don't have that. Most people have to go to work every day. I work in a Starbucks inside of a Target when I'm home. I go in there anywhere between 6 and 14 hours, $4.44. I get free refill coffee all day, free Wi-Fi. Not a lot of people can do that. So I get to make my own hours.
I love it. I love the message. All right. 3 things, 3 rituals, 3 disciplines, 3 commitments, 3 things that everybody should do every day to have a more optimal life.
Yeah, the first is find a few minutes for yourself. Really just find a few minutes for yourself when you start your day. I need to do this better myself, but to just get away from everything, all of the noise. I just started I recently did a 9-week meditation and mindfulness program with a yoga instructor and mindfulness person in Queens. He's amazing. They've been trying to talk me into doing this he does it with a former Navy SEAL. So if a Navy SEAL can do it, anybody can do it. But they taught me about, just taking some time to breathe, take some time to just kind of think about everything. Journaling, writing is a great one. So I take a lot of notes. A lot of it's chicken scratch, but I find things in here that I wrote that's a memory that brings me back to, hey, that makes sense. That's a good practice to have. And then choose your 5. I think it's Jim Rohn that said, you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. I have more than 5, but make sure you're choosing right to have the people around you. Like if you have toxic, poisonous people around you, remove them or let them know. But that's the most important thing. Who you choose for your tribe is all important and all imperative. Is just, again, in fulfillment, not success. Everybody talks about success like it's this achievable trophy. But to find fulfillment, to choose your tribe right, whoever that is, right? If you have people that have bad intentions, I've had a couple, push them aside because you don't need it. Have people that, and it's not people that are going to blow sunshine up your, what? I don't know if I can swear on here, not that I do it much anyway, but not the people blow sunshine up you, but people that are going to kick you in the pants when they need to, encourage you when they need to, and stand beside you when they need to, and know that much. So that's probably the biggest one. I've got great people around me.
Katie, who's sitting next to me, for those listening, she's an intern. I actually went to high school with her mom. We're getting old. We're all going to be dead soon. Any questions I missed, Katie, that you think we should ask?
I'm just curious personally, when I was looking into you a little bit, is there any particular reason why you chose the 3 elements that you chose, or was it just because it spelled be awesome?
In 2015, my house was essentially destroyed in the polar vortex. I proposed to my fiance, who I've known since 1988. Proposed. 24 hours later, our house was getting destroyed by ice dams on our roof. It was a really tough, bad time in our life. Like, our house was destroyed. There's a reason why you don't wash dishes in a bathroom sink. Like, a whole bunch of stuff was going on. And we came out of that. We wanted to have more kids. Danny, my oldest, is not mine biologically. I've had him. He's been with me since he was 17 days old. It's Amy's firstborn. And the doctors, we did some testing because we were older, and the doctors told us we weren't going to be able to have more kids. We had 2 chances, fat chance and no chance. Literally, that's what they told us because we get along. We have fun with doctors and things. In 2017, I almost choked to death. I was in Atlantic City at Harrah's, and I almost choked to death. Paul, this friend of mine, Paul, was there and saved my life. Broke 2 ribs. They say if you break a rib in the Heimlich maneuver, you're successful. He broke 2, so he was an overachiever. And 3 days later, I drove home that night. I got home at 3:30 in the morning to tell Amy, and 3 days later, Chance was conceived, and so he was born in December. I had a lot to be thankful for, and so I was doing a lot of talking in this company, that software company I was at, and I was always talking about wake up and be awesome, and it was like this whole mantra. And so one day I was just like, I was looking at the periodic elements because I do a lot of schools, and I was like, I want to stump Google. Right? I want to stump Google. I want to put words that Google doesn't have that you can spell in elements. And bacon and all these other words were already taken. So I started to put words together. So I came up with be awesome, you are awesome, super awesome. We have awesome baby. I have a whole bunch of them. Trademarked them too. I didn't realize you could trademark periodic elements, but I own these 3. Like, that's pretty cool. So one of my business advisors is also an ultra marathon runner, got done running like 30 miles one day, and June of 2018. And this was supposed to be a book. My original book was going to be a sales book called If You Don't Care, You Don't Count. And I realized as I started writing it, one, I'm not a very good writer. Two, I was insulting everybody, and that wasn't my personality. So the idea was to come up with a book of positivity and relatable stories and things. And so came in from his run, and he's like, Peach, I thought of it. You've been wearing the shirt. You got the books. You got all the stuff, because I had these things made like a year before. He's like, be awesome. The essential elements to kicking ass. And that's the Tika in the bottom. And I was like, that's crazy enough to work. And so I put an LLC together. I started the business, all with the intention of writing a book. And people wanted to hear the story in person. Started a podcast, had Santa Claus and a whole bunch of people on it. And it just took off. And people liked it. And they loved the shirt. They loved the logo. And we're changing the name of the book. Should be done. My publisher's actually outside the studio here. We've changed the name of the book to You Are Awesome, and with the periodic elements. So, but it's all about reminding people that they're awesome and to be awesome and to do awesome things. And it doesn't mean you need to climb a mountain or do any of that stuff. It just means be a better human, which, by the way, you probably can't see this, not to change the subject, but I had him do a logo. I don't believe that this is on Google, but you can spell Spartan. You can't see it. I'll send you the logo, but you can spell Spartan with the periodic elements. Sulfur, phosphorus, argon, tantalum, which I didn't even know what that was, and nitrogen.
You need a little nitrogen to be a Spartan. I like it.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, how do people find you? Be Awesome?
Yeah, so beawesome.com. It's beausm.com. My email is josh@beawesome.com. And give me a call if you want me to come out, speak to your group, talk to your education institution company, work with you. We're putting together some virtual content for next year, so that when I go to speak, one of the things you can probably relate to this, someone comes to your event and then it's like, then what, right? So many people fall off that, they train, they get ready, they go do it. And they're like, I did great. Let me go get some donuts and hang out, right? So that's the same thing with your mind. So we're going to put together some content, some virtual content, an app, hopefully, where I go and talk, I give people a shot in the arm, and then they can go into a daily dose, if you will. So we're working on that. But yeah, josh@beawesome.com is the best way. LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn every day. The other social media, it's a necessity. Other than I don't really like those platforms, because it just doesn't put a whole lot of professional out there. And like you say, there's a lot of negativity that you don't want to see and read.
Let's stay in touch. I need a Be Awesome shot in the arm every day.
Yeah, no, I'll get you something. And I have something coming your way. I don't know if you saw this, but is it all right if I show it to you?
Yeah, sure.
Like I said, when I was at 36,000 feet, I immediately was feeling like this is like something that's meant to happen. And you were just like, maybe I thought I was going to meet you someday to be able to say thank you, but I thought it was so important. I wanted to do something special. So I had a friend of mine who makes flags out of reclaimed wood.
Oh, I love
it. This. And so it's the American flag half and the Spartan logo. Hopefully you don't get mad at them for trademark infringement or anything, but it's the only one that's being made. It's yours. It says unbreakable in the bottom. And this mahogany was actually swamp harvested in Georgia. So there's a description and the number and a signature on the back for you. So
I love it. I love it.
Get this in the mail for you, and it's a small thank you for everything.
We'll have that in the podcast room here. So all future podcasts will have the swamp flag.
The swamp harvested mahogany. Yep.